Welcome back to the 5 best DFS tips of week 2. We are talking with our resident DFS expert at the 33rd team, Jordan Vanek, the man who called Calvin Ridley his lock of the week last week. And boy, oh boy, did Calvin Ridley star. We are going to go through every position and Jordan's top player from quarterback all the way through defense. Jordan, let's start with the quarterback position. Who is your lock of the week in DFS at QB?
Justin Herbert. We saw this past weekend the Saints threw for over 300 yards against this Titans secondary. The Titans did get a lot of pressure on Derek Carr, but as we saw from Justin Herbert in that Chargers front, their offense line played extremely well against Miami. I know Justin Herbert didn't throw for a ton of yards, but that's just what a Vic Fangio's defense is going to do. I don't think Vrabel's going to let them run the ball because that's just his MO as a defensive coordinator, which opens the door for the Chargers and Kellen Moore to start this passing game. They're going to be throwing it down the field often, and it's going to be benefiting Justin Herbert this week.
Do you think that Justin Herbert, assuming that Austin Eckler is going to be out, is that going to help or hurt his total overall from a DFS perspective?
I think it can help. I don't think it's necessarily going to be correlated in that way because people are like, oh, well, then they just won't guard the run. It's like, no, because we just saw Josh Kelly run for a lot of yards. And again, Vrabel's mindset is that old school mindset. I am not letting you run the ball. We saw all day, everybody was on Jamal Williams as, oh, he's the only running back in New Orleans. He failed. I don't think Josh Kelly has a great matchup this week, and I wouldn't be starting him.
Okay, let's go to the running back position. If you're not going to be going after Josh Kelly, who is that running back that you're going to be locking up in all your lineups?
Josh Jacobs. Obviously, we just saw Breece Hall have the huge runs. We saw Dalvin Cook be productive. The one thing that I found out about this Bills defense, and I hadn't previously known, they live in their nickel package, which means they don't have 3 linebackers on the field, even when you play 2 tight ends. So you're essentially getting an extra corner on the field in your nickel package, which doesn't exactly help them stop the run. And we've seen Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, we saw Damian Harris, Ramondre throughout these years beat up this Bills defense. In this game against Josh Jacobs, I think it's clear cut that he's going to get all the carries and be highly productive in this matchup.
I love that. What about the wide receiver position? Last week you locked Calvin Ridley. You said he was going to be the guy. He was. Can you match the magic that we found last week in week 1?
So if I'm stacking Justin Herbert, I'm going with Mike Williams. But the receiver I got to talk about is Deebo Samuel. I know week 1, it was the Brandon Ayuk show. McCaffrey went crazy. In this matchup against the Rams, I think we're going to see a lot of zone looks, which Deebo Samuel, just in that kind of idea, he's going to get the ball in space. And when he gets the ball in space, you see the stuff after the catch. I think he's going to be the wide receiver in that room to score some points. And again, right now, I think everybody's got to look at Brock Purdy as a guy who's going to get his playmakers the ball. And in this matchup, I love Deebo Samuel to be that top playmaker.
I love that. Do you worry at all about the fact that with Brandon Ayuk having 2 touchdowns in week 1, he had over 100 receiving yards, they might try to go to them early? Or is this really just as simple as the coverage is going to dictate it right going to Deebo Samuel this week?
So Kyle Shanahan does one thing well, and he's going to take whatever you are giving him. And we've seen in these past years that the Rams are allowing Debo to kind of catch the ball in space. And this year they don't have Jalen Ramsey. I know that they performed highly against the Seattle Seahawks last week. Seattle Seahawks didn't play well at all. They lost both their left tackle and their right tackle. I think this matchup is going to be a nightmare one for the 49 or for the Rams, and just Deebo Samuel getting the ball out quick because you do not want to let Aaron Donald get going.
Well, the tight end position is probably the most tricky. Last week, we saw probably the worst tight end week as a whole over the last 10 years. Already in one game in week 2, TJ Hawkinson already had the best performance for a tight end all of fantasy season. Do you expect a better tight end slate in week 2? And who would be that guy that you think helps accelerate that?
I definitely do. And the guy that I have is Darren Waller. The Cardinals are not a very good team. I know they played up to par against the Washington Commanders last week. And I know the Giants did not look good against Dallas. Dallas is just a defense that will be a dominant one against anybody in the entire NFL. Darren Waller this week, I think him and Dable get to showcase what they were going to be doing throughout this year against the defense that's going to allow them to do it. The Cardinals played a lot of quarters coverage, which is like cover 4, keeping everything underneath. And as you saw in the preseason, they were getting Darren Waller the ball in these short areas. I think this is the week that you see him get going, and just overall tight end position gets a little better. We're not going to get to the receiver level. That's not happening.
Yeah, it probably will not happen. But what about the defense last week? We saw, the performance of a lifetime from the Cowboys. Is there any defense that, probably can't replicate it, but do you think has that upside potential to be a slate breaker from a defense and special teams?
I mean, the Buccaneers, I liked what I saw from them against the Minnesota Vikings, being able to hold them to 17 points on offense because Vikings are still a very good offense and they played keep away on the offense side of the ball. It's just the Bears offense. I have no idea what they were trying to accomplish. I watched the QB school breakdown Justin Fields game. They were pulling their left tackle on bootlegs, which is just forbidden for most offensive coordinators. I don't like what I saw from the Bears offense at all. And they had issues covering or blocking up middle, which Vita Vea is not someone you want to just let roam free in that backfield. So the Buccaneers are the defense right now. That's the top play for me.
I love that. I love that. Well, that is the 5 best DFS tips for week 2. We'll be back every single Sunday live on Twitter and on YouTube on the 33rd Team Fantasy and Betting channel, talking all things DFS. Don't forget to tune in next week every single Friday at 10 a.m. But until next time, don't forget to like and subscribe.